Welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kirk, and for today we are going to take a look at another challenger guide to help you reach the next level. With the Kayle release, we also got his sister, Morgana, and now let's move over to the ability breakdown immediately. Morgana's passive ability is called Soul Siphon. Thanks to that, she heals for 20% of all her ability damage against champions, large minions, and large monsters. Her first ability is Dark Binding. Upon casting it, she unleashes a bolt of dark energy that roots the enemy for almost an eternity. Morgana's second ability is Tormented Shadow. This ability curses an area for 5 seconds and deals magic damage to enemies in that area. Monsters generally take 150% damage from Tormented Shadow, and targets that are low on HP receive even more damage. And if that wasn't enough already, every time Morgana's passive triggers, the cooldown of Tormented Shadow is reduced by 5%. The last of Morgana's basic abilities is Black Shield. You can cast this ability on yourself or an ally, and the recipient of the shield is immune to any CC as long as the shield holds. And before we move over to Morgana's ultimate ability, let's take a small break for a question of the day. Now that you've seen Morgana and Kayle, who do you like more and why exactly? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more upcoming content. With Soul Shackles, we have come to Morgana's last and ultimate ability. It chains nearby enemy champions, dealing magic damage equal to a percentage of their maximum HP instantly. Those chains persist for 3 seconds, reveal and slow enemies by 15%, while Morgana gains 15% movement speed herself. After the duration ends, chained targets are stunned for 1.5 seconds and receive the same damage from before again. With the abilities out of the way, let's talk about where Morgana should be played in terms of the meta, her role, and what she desires the most as a champion. Morgana is a mid laner, jungler, and a support. However, support is probably her weakest position unless she's played with a fasting Senna. If anything, she'd also be played full AP anyway without any supportive items. The reason for this are her limited options to make use of such supportive items. Outside of her third ability, she doesn't have any tools to make use of them, unless she commits for a specific enchantment. So let's take a look at her in the mid lane and jungle position. Morgana is a ranged champion that, similar to Kayle, isn't the strongest during the early game, but can offer some cheesy stuff when she invests a skill point into her first ability. However, doing so will significantly hurt her lane and jungle potency a lot. So this might only be a move that can be pulled off while playing her in the dragon lane. For her laning, Morgana will most likely just spam shove waves, akin to Graves, who is another spam shoving monster. Morgana just needs 2 of her second abilities cooldowns to clear an entire wave level 1 with an Amp Tomb and Brutal. For good measure, weave in a few ult attacks on the melee creeps and you're on the safe side. This way you create natural priority and get the opportunity to support your jungler in each of his moves. Spoiler, they'll love you for this. In the jungle role, Morgana can also do something not every champion can do. She has the ability to multi-camp. She can find multiple camps at once and therefore increase her clearing efficiency. For that, all she has to do is pull red buff and raptors together, stand between both camps and make sure that the big monsters don't reset while her puddle is dealing damage to them. Do you remember the part about Morgana's passive that grants her a partial cooldown reset on her second ability? This is going to be the game changer. Unfortunately though, it is borderline impossible, or rather too hard and inconsistent, to multi-camp red and raptors without resetting the small raptors. But honestly, that's not a problem. You can just finish off the small ones after you're done with the red buff. After that, we get to the easy part. Casually walk over to your blue buff and pull the Gromp and blue buff at the same time. Again, you need to stand between both camps and make sure that your second ability damages both of them at the same time. Here, you also don't have to worry about anything, because resetting the camps is quite hard, it's super easy. And now, take a look at the in-game timer. it's before 125 in the game, you didn't receive a leash and you're level 4. That's some insane clear speed that only a few junglers of the past were capable of, until they got nerfed. Rip Kha'Zix and Rengar's speed clear before Scuttlecrab. However, doing such a clear exposes herself to a certain amount of risk. The moment players understand the way a Morgana can and wants to clear, they'll come up with patterns to punish her for it. Especially during the Gromp and blue buff, she's extremely vulnerable to the late invades, and losing her life most likely guarantees losing Gromp and blue buff as well. Once this happens, it's going to be very hard to come back into the game, so be really careful. Morgana is also known as a non-committal champion. Her way of engaging is similar to throwing out a fishing line. That means she isn't actively putting herself at risk while trying to look for opportunities. Champions such as Alistar, though, are considered committal champions. To get something done, they have to put their bodies into harm's way. Nonetheless, akin to Alistar, Morgana has committal tools such as her ultimate ability. It's a massive tool for damage and crowd control and can be the deciding factor in a fight. Hitting as many enemies as possible forces them to respond. If they don't leave your range, they'll take an insane amount of damage as well as being CC'd. Consequently, they're in a dire need of changing their game plan in that very situation. Splitting a fight in that way or hitting your first ability on someone are probably the best things you can do on this champion. Other than that, you have the ability to make your hyper carry immune to any CC, which can also be a huge contribution towards victory. But what does Morgana as a champion truly desire? She doesn't want to side lane ever. She wants to sit mid, clear waves and fish for opportunities on cooldown. Every time she hits someone, the target is in real danger, and if she misses, she may just back off and relax a little bit. One might say in that regard, Morgana is very similar to Ziggs and Orianna. Sit mid lane, farm and assist your team. So please don't forget that when you lock her in, otherwise you might be in for an unpleasant surprise. Next up comes the itemization. Here we are in kind of a pickle. As we know, Morgana is a non-committal champion, but she also features committal tools. Taking this into consideration, it's very important that she as a champion gets some extra health. Otherwise, she'd die way too fast. During the laning phase, it's not really a problem to just build Rod of Ages first. The item just got nerfed in terms of scaling speed, but nonetheless it's still a crazy item for its price tag and caters towards the needs of specific champions way too well than any other item could. For the jungle role though, you might be able to make up the argument that Ludens could provide more early power thanks to the passive and the additional ability haste. But don't worry, if you're looking for a build that will always provide you with good value, whatever the case, then we got you covered. Start with Rod of Ages for the additional tankiness and a fat amount of ability power. After that, we want to put emphasis on the raw AP of our rower and purchase Rabadon's Staff Cap. Don't forget that our ultimate scales with AP and deals a percentage of the enemy's maximum HP. The more AP we have, the more damage it's going to chunk away. After that, we can go and build a Void Staff, an Infinity Orb and a Morellonomicon. Now, most of you might be a bit confused. Why those items? Here's a little secret about boots. Mercury Treads only grant 10 magic resistance. Most carries and a lot of other champions don't have a lot of basic magic resist. For example, carries usually have between 30 and 40 magic resistance and that's it. And even if they're bought mercs, they'd still only have around 50. With your build though, you'll avoid at least 53 magic resist and therefore deal true damage to the enemy champions. And if you ask me, that's a lot of extra burst damage. Other than that, you're able to swap out either the Infinity Orb or the Morellos for Liandry's. For your enchantment, Stasis will be most of the time your best choice. Flashing into the enemy team, casting ult and using it will grant you safety and force the enemy team to respond and leave the area. Quite simple, but highly effective. Protobelt can also be seen as an alternative. That is if you think they can't stop you anyway and your Black Shield will be enough to keep you safe. Last but not least, for the shoes you want Boots of Lucidity. Your build is already ability haste staffed as it is, and you love having blue buff, so get those sneakers and fish for some more dark bindings. You will hit one eventually. And eventually it's also time for the last segment of this video, the runes. For keystones we have quite some options cause none of them really changes too much. For more sustain and some extra movement speed we can take Fleet Footwork. It's not really much of a game changer, but in some situations it's really nice to have. Airy on the other hand makes your shield and laning more powerful. The additional damage you gain from it is quite nice if you consider how the rune in combination with your thirst and second ability works. Your last choice is most likely going to be Phase Rush. This keystone is providing you with the most power in a teamfight, aka the ability to stick on your target without having to worry about anything. Even a flash will not be enough to get away from you unless it's over a wall. For the domination tree we have Brutal and Weakness. Brutal grants us more AP and overall more power in terms of shoving the wave and clearing our jungle. Weakness puts more emphasis on our strength in a teamfight as we're able to apply it on all enemies at once. In the Resolve tree we want either Adaptive Carapace or Hunter Titan for the additional HP it grants when it's fully stacked. Last but not least, we have the Inspiration tree. For laning, we have our beloved Sweet Tooth, and for jungling we can choose between Mastermind or Pathfinder. One grants us more map presence and the other helps us take down objectives faster while also increasing their gold value. And that wraps up today's video. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the video leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Great things are coming your way.